Next, we have an insight session, a fireside chat with Mr. Sumit Gwalani and Mr. Govind Joshi on digital data, how to make it work for India. They will explore innovative strategies and practical approaches to harness the potential of digital reach and data analytics to expand the reach of open finance in India. The moderator for this session will be Gopakumar. Mr. Sumit Gwalani is the co-founder and chief product and technology officer at Fi and Epifi Wealth, a deep tech financial platform built for the digital-first working professionals with a vision to change the way people see and interact with their money. He was a director of product management at Google India, where he conceptualized and co-founded Tez as the payments lead for Google Pay India. He was instrumental in making Google Pay as one of the leading payment products in India. Please help me welcome Mr. Sumit. With him, we have Mr. Govind Joshi, who is currently serving as the EVP and the Chief Business Officer at TU-CIBIL, where he is responsible for developing and executing growth strategy, business development, and ecosystem partnerships. He has over 23 years of prior experience in management consulting and industry roles in banking across US and Asia. And his core expertise lies in business strategy, solutioning, and driving transformation initiatives for banks and NBFCs. Please help me welcome Mr. Govind Joshi. Our moderator, Gopakumar, currently works as a senior assistant editor with Mint Reporting on Reserve Bank of India and banking systems. She has over 15 years of experience in financial journalism across print and television media. She has worked with ET Now and CNBC. At Mint, she also hosts a daily podcast called Mint Business News. Please help me welcome our moderator, Gopika.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to our guests and all of you for this session. It's indeed very heartening to see such a big turnout for this, and I'm guessing we all have a tough task because this session is just right after the lunch, so we have to keep you wide awake, and of course, all the questions interesting. So because our topic for the day is digital data, how to make it work. Now, to make it work, we need to see whether the users really use it. Only then we get to know whether it really works. So in this audience, I know most of you are experts on AA, but how many of you actually use AA in your personal life? Can we take a poll? That's around what, 40%, 30%? Yeah. So let's start there. How to make it work? How to ensure that this AA, which is touted to be the next UPI, becomes popular among all of you? So let me cut right across to Sumit and help us understand what has been your experience, especially with your customers, with your clients. How do you make them aware of AA and bring them on board?
So as FiMoney, where we act as a personal finance management tool to help people with their finances, help demystify finances for them, Account Aggregator has played a huge role for us, right? To the point of almost pivoting a strategy towards it a lot more. And I think from being able to provide aggregated statements, and we talked about aggregated statements in the last talk here, but from providing aggregated statements to provide insights about people spending across their bank accounts to how they can actually save more has been revolutionary, right? Like our second most used feature on our app is basically purely based on Account Aggregator. First is of course payments, which the numbers would always be high for payments. And the second, really the biggest one is this, right? And the value it's adding day by day, the kind of customer feedback that we have got from people that it is helping them, stuff that they used to do in spreadsheets and stuff. And now with the power of digital data and, consent-based data coming out there that gives them a single view of their finances has been of huge help for us.
Right. And how do you think you can get this crowd to come on AA?
So I think what we're seeing is A is still in its early days, right? Like to me, if I look at, it's been just a year and a half since its launch, and more and more data formats are coming in. You've got a bunch of banks out there, insurance data out there, mutual fund data will soon be there. As more and more data comes out there, there are a ton of great apps being built across. And as these apps adds more and more incredible use cases that solve problems from credit to wealth management to personal finance management to stuff we saw in the sort of the last talk about statements in rural villages, it's actually instrumental that these solutions will actually create a bunch of financial inclusion across the country. And the key is more and more people using the account aggregator data to build valuable stuff for the user that actually creates an impact in their daily life. And that impact is what will get, hopefully by next year, this 35-40% is more like 90-100%, right? And that would be my hope. And so as more, I remember we were among the first 2 apps that actually started using the account aggregator data like more than a year back. And now if you look at, there are already, Vamsi would have the numbers, but like 50, 100 plus more apps starting to use it. As this numbers, exponentially increases, the usage will increase too.
Okay. So let me come to Govind, who has that role to play in terms of analyzing this data, making it usable for the users or customizing it for the users and making those innovative products. How do you leverage on this digital data, on this ecosystem and make it relevant for users?
Yeah, thank you, Gopi. And good afternoon, everybody. But before we get into the answering that question, how many of us know who TU-CIBIL is? Just quickly. I know I don't want to be presumptuous. I'm assuming everybody knows, but so look, we are neither FIPs or FIUs as part of the account aggregator ecosystem, right? We are at TSPs. What our role outside of A is to look at the financials, specifically credit information that is associated with all of us, any of us, and create insights based on that can assist the credit institution make decisions in terms of credit. Now, we have been doing it for a long time, right? What changes for us when AA came in is the fact that now a lot more data, a lot more type of data flows in through the ecosystem now. So, if you think about a credit decisioning that any credit institution does, there are 2 parts to it, right? Assessing the ability to pay and intent to pay. Right? Those are the 2 things that get, if you think about what all it boils down to, those are 2 questions that need to be answered. Now, there are a lot of different ways to assess intent. The way that we look at it is we look at our history of our borrowers and see what has there been, and have he or she been paying the credit cards on time, how have their mortgages being paid, and so on and so on. Now, in terms of ability to pay, there is a lot more that can be done in addition to what we already do. Now, for example, bank statements are now flowing through the ecosystem, right? That's a huge amount of information that can be looked into. You can look at their GST, if it's a MSME especially, right? To look at what kind of trades that they're having. Or look at their, there are more things that will come in. The wealth statements will start coming through. Wealth information will start coming through. So all of that can be then clubbed with what we already do. So from our perspective, ecosystem gets a huge boost to overall how the financial inclusion will work in this country. And we talked about the numbers this morning. There are only 20-25% of the country is currently covered under credit. I mean, that's the one use case. We can talk about other use cases also for consumers. That huge amount of population which is new to credit, how to assess their ability to and their intent to pay, Some of that can be achieved through the data that will start flowing to the AA. So from our perspective, I think it's a great opportunity. We are very excited to be part of that. And we think there is a lot that can be done. We have already started, and Jalin will talk about that a little bit, but there is a lot that we can do beyond this.
Have you already started working on this?
Yeah, so I think there are some products that we have been working on, right? I mean, they are working already live in an offline kind of mode. One of the products that we have recently launched under the guidance of SIDBI is for the MSME, we call it FIT rank, financials, income and trades, right? That's the acronym. But the idea there is to look at non-traditional data, meaning traditional being the credit, their account statement, their GST submissions, and their ITR, their income tax return, to look at their financial fitness, right? To look at what can be done. What we found after we compared that information and the models that we have built based on that, it actually helps enhance the credit decisioning process for the credit institution. It gives more information for the banks and NBFCs to make better decisions. So that product is already live. Now that GSTN is going to start flowing through by another month or so. So we are looking at it and see how we can plug into the ecosystem. So that kind of product is ready to get plugged in. So we are already working on that. So as that gets plugged in, that is a great way for the MSME financial inclusion to happen. There was a recent announcement about GST filing threshold to be lowered from 10 crore to 5 crore now. That means many more MSMEs will come in that net, right? And those will be smaller and smaller. And if you think about it, 3 years ago, it was, 500 or 50 million or 50 crore or something. Now it has come, or 500 crore, I guess. And it has come down to now 5 crore now, and it can even go further. What that means is that kind of information will be available more and more. And this kind of product that we have now launched can help more and more MSMEs and more financial inclusion as well.
Do we know how many SME users are currently using this? Any data on this?
It's not the SMEs or MSMEs who will use it. It's the credit institution who will use this product. So we already put it live. Our partner OPL's, their platform, it's already live. We are testing it with many other credit institutions already. So what happens is these new products, they have to be tested to make sure that it is holding and so on. So that process is going on. But I think we are pretty confident based on the analysis that we have done and tests that we have run. It's a great product that will help improve the MSME lending tremendously.
Okay. Sumit, you're on two A's, and you also have you work on two products, which is the credit and the personal finance. What other innovations do you see happening on this platform?
So I think, the reason, there are multiple account aggregators that have got an operational licenses. Our reason is as per the spirit of the whole account aggregator framework, the idea is to connect with anyone. So there's no concentration risk in sort of one account aggregator. So our plan is to work with most account aggregators out there as more redundancy builds in the system overall, which at the end of the day helps with the end user. In terms of what can be done, I think to me the list is endless, right? Like I've said in the past that really, to me, account aggregator is the next UPI in India. Just to give a ton of examples that you could do just with bank statements, since we are talking bank statements, right? Yes, you can do the basic stuff that we are doing today in terms of spend analysis, how to save and stuff, but there's bunch of things. You think about knowing when you have got your refunds. Half the time you have to keep worrying about, did I get my refund or did I not get my refund? Was I charged twice? Is somebody doing fraud transactions? The amount of stuff that you can automate on this data is endless. Wealth is something Govind touched upon, right? Like today, you go to your investment advisor and they sort of, take in all your statements, your net worth, and then give you advice on what should be your distribution among high risk, mid risk, low risk investments. All of this can be done through account aggregator data. With mutual fund data flowing in the future, hopefully more on the equity side, bank statements, net worth can be calculated and investment advice can be given, which can be personalized to every single individual and not at a group level, right? Like, so what you really get a personalized service can be provided from that. In terms of insurance, right? How do I underwrite somebody, even from an insurance perspective? Based on knowing more about the user, better customized insurance plans can be created, which would be beneficial for a larger purpose. And then, of course, credit is always there, right? The power of account aggregator in credit is for reaching financial inclusion to the space where it hasn't reached, right? Like, just take of folks in rural cities who, may not have a bureau score, but today they are still earning 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 through maybe blue collar jobs and stuff. As these reports come in through account aggregator and you have that data via bank statements or other forms of ways, you now can create better underwriting models there. And we're already starting to see a number of players in the ecosystem start doing that. So overall, to me, it's sort of the next revolution in financial ecosystem here in India with what this account aggregator can provide. As all of us sitting in the room, it's on us to build those apps, take that power and create value and impact for the end user.
Right. But do you think right now the customer gives his consent and he's assured that this data will not be misused? Do you think there needs to be more control mechanisms, especially on FIUs, to ensure that this data is being used appropriately?
No, great question. And I think if you look at the account aggregator framework, this has already been taken care of. So today already, as per the account aggregator thing, you need, when you give consent, the account aggregator also needs to have the ability for the user to go and say, I want to revoke my consent. When you give consent, there's also an expiry time set, which could be 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, whatever the duration might be. But even if, say, 4 months into it, you decide, you know what, I don't trust this account aggregator FIU, I can go and say, I want to revoke my consent, and that data should not be, my data should not be accessible by that FIU anymore. Morely, you can also go and say, please go ahead and delete my data. So unless, you've taken a loan through that data, and for laws, that data has to be kept, as per other IT acts in India, unless that case is there, the FIU has to delete your data right away when that ask is made, right? So that's already part of the account aggregator framework, which is why it's a great model out there and very powerful, giving user control back of their data.
Right. Coming to Govind, what would be the challenges going forward? I mean, A is touted to be the next UPI. What does it take to be the next UPI?
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, if I think about 2 dimensions of how the ecosystem can grow, obviously there are use cases which are very specific, very niche. Like we just saw one that Prakash was showing earlier just before we came in. There are going to be those types of localized or local optimization kind of solutions that will come up, and that's actually a great way to kickstart the process, get the ball rolling, and and see how that improves the adoption in the ecosystem. The other thing, and I think as a data company where we get more excited about, is can we look across these different types of data sets that are coming together. GSTN is going to start coming through. Bank statements are already there. Insurance is talking about it. SEBI has already asked the mutual fund industry, pension funds. And then they're talking about even going into healthcare and so on, right? Once those kinds of data sets starts coming through the ecosystem, there is going to be a multiplier or exponential effect that's going to happen. I mean, the amounts of information that can be analyzed and insights can be drawn that can help in so many different data sets and so many different use cases that will come in. So I think it's going to be a journey. Obviously, there will be risks that will accompany this. There could be, but I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. You'll see some, people who want to take advantage of this, and so how do we stop the fraud and all that? And I know that already SamvAAd is thinking about that, and maybe Vamsi can speak a little bit more about that. But I think those kinds of challenges will be there, but they will be handled. The good thing is all the regulators are working together on this, and there is a very structured approach in terms of, and the frameworks that are being laid. So I think the roadmap looks pretty good in terms of, we are almost at a point where things are going to start taking off. We're already seeing in the last 1 year, the adoption and usage of AA as a platform has grown tremendously. I think there's no reason why it can't go to the next level and start getting into UPI type of territory in the near future.
Sumit, how do you make this data popular?
So, we talked about some of the use cases earlier, right? I think the key you will see is, lending or credit is a use case that happens when you need it, right? So only when you need it, you will see the power of it. As we get more and more use cases where account aggregator is used daily, weekly, beyond credit, that's where you will see this power, people starting to see it. Like UPI is known because we see it every time we scan a QR code today, which is almost every day. And that ends up being that the impact it has created on people's lives is huge. As we go into more, applications beyond credit on account aggregator, whether it be wealth management, PFM and others, you will see that power come in. In fact, there could be use cases. I know this has been discussed in some other forums, right? Like today, imagine you're, sending some documents for your tax purposes, or, you're trying to, get a visa to go somewhere. And you're doing the same thing. You're getting your bank statements, go there. All of this can be one click going forward, right? And that's the power that you will see this over the years come, where basically all the almost called grungy work that you had to do of downloading something, downloading a signed statement from a bank, then going and giving it to somebody else, or getting, blank checks or like cancel checks and stuff. All of this, the account aggregator can take care of, right? So the ways it can grow is huge, right? Like,
What's your next plan?
what's our next plan? I think just go deeper into users think from a money perspective, right? Like I think while we have focused a lot more on spends and budgeting, we'll see a lot more coming in from the investment side for us, right? As a registered investment advisor ourselves, you'll start seeing us giving basically what I talked about earlier, like relatively detailed, personalized, customized plans for every individual out there as to how they should invest across everything.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Maybe one question we can take. Yes. Yeah.
So, quick question. The UPI became UPI because it's so easy to use, right? While we have given, or at least the architecture of account aggregator is where we have given the power to the customers, has to be some trade-off where it is also simple to onboard, it is also simple to share. I have seen multiple OTPs to come if you have to share from multiple parties. Onboarding is still not as smooth if you think about a street vendor or a SGUman. Do you think that there is a trade-off required, or this is early for now?
This is still early days, right? Like I think if I go back, rewind back to UPI in 2016 and 17, and I went through that whole UPI journey in that early days, success rates were low. There were still banks coming onto the UPI. It took its own time to settle down, right? Like initially it used to be OTP, you got your last 6 digits of debit card come in, then PIN come in to improve security. And account aggregator is on that same journey, right? So I almost see a similarity if I rewind back 6 years of 2023 account aggregator is similar to like early 2017 in UPI. And as you go forward to say 2020, you saw UPI come up. Give account aggregator 2-3 more years and you will hopefully see the exact same growth.
I agree with you. So just to add one more point, right? In terms of the problem that UPI solved, compared to what account aggregator is designed to solve, right? It's a very different scale of breadth, I should say. So there could be some which will be as simple as a UPI. I mean, maybe as an example, a very small ticket item loan or a, instant insurance type of a small insurance type. Maybe those will become very, very seamless and all that. Then there will be others which will be a loan to a corporation, right? I mean MSME I meant. Right? So those will require some more. So I don't think everything will become UPI type, but that's not because there are limitations to the platform. It's more about the use cases that we are solving for, and then the risks that people are going to take on the other side, and so on and so on. But the bottom line is everything will become, or should become, lot more seamless, lot more streamlined, lot less frictious, and that's the bottom line. I think we are out of time.
Just one question. Just one question to Govind. Will there be a time when CIBIL, Experian, and other two will have a standardized single score, not for individual, but at least same score? And to you, Sumit, do you get MCC codes in your bank statement? If you don't get, then how do you make out who is spending on liquor and who is spending on ice cream?
The question to me is slightly out of syllabus, but let me still answer.
No, we don't get MCC codes right now. I think it's one of the ask to VAMCs. Can we add that? But no, I think on a more serious note, we don't. But we do get what you see in a statement, right? When you get a statement printed, you get sort of some information about the merchant, and then you have to run your own AI models to map that to an MCC and determine exactly what that code is and determine whether it's that liquor or something else, right? So that's where sort of the intelligence or the things that we built in on top of it, right? That's the role of us as an FIU, is providing that personal finance management to add value over the data that comes in.
Okay. Thank you all for joining in. It's time up. But it took a lot of cashbacks, rewards to make UPI very popular. Now, what does it take to make AA popular so that all of us in the audience start using it? Clearly, the two practitioners have their hands full to ensure that they innovate on this data, leverage on this data, and also ensure that this data is not misused. So, on that note, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Sumit and Govind.
Thank you very much. Vamsi, if you can felicitate our 3 speakers for today.